All right, welcome. Good morning to Google Forms. Nice introduction to those of you who have not used it yet, but it's a really great tool to help you get information in a streamlined way and then use it in a way that is most efficient and most effective for you. So we want to make sure that we're learning all about how to make that happen for your role. Your role has a lot of specific needs, and we want to make sure that we're addressing those in our session today. So my name is Lynn Hilt, and I'm happy to be working with you. If you have any questions, reach out to me via email after today, lynnhill@berksiu.org. But yeah, I do love Google Forms. I've been using them for quite some time, and they're just so easy to create once you get the hang of it, and they just serve a number of different purposes. I think right away, if you haven't used Google Forms yet, you're going to find a use for it as you see what it can do. So Google Forms is a web-based feedback collection creation tool, and it's part of the G Suite for education apps that are available. And you can view the responses right inside Forms, or if you want to do some more in-depth data work, you can create a spreadsheet through Google Sheets that houses all of your data. It is a collaborative app, so if you are working with a colleague or if you are working with a team, you can co-create forms, you can share forms with other people, they can make copies, and all that kind of good stuff. This is an introduction that Google hosts on their website for you to learn more about the uses of Google Forms from their perspective. So the question is, how can Google Forms help us be more productive? That's always a question that I would like answered in my life. So here are some things that you can do with forms. For sure, it's helpful for gathering staff feedback. So requisitions, if you do any kind of beginning and end of the year checklists, and I'll give a shout out to Tracy at Boyertown because we were working through some of that last week. If you do event signups or any kind of planning and preparation from your office, I don't know, there are like 500 notifications going off in my life right now. If you ever survey staff or survey parents, if your principals that you work with or your superintendents, if they like to get parental feedback, you could be the person who starts designing all these cool forms for them. Whether you're just asking for days and times availability or parent involvement, initiative feedback, Forms is great for that. It's also great on a personal level for record keeping and for logs. So for example, I used to be an instructional coach, and I would use a Google form to log the amount of time that I spent in teachers' classrooms, and the form would help me kind of delineate what grade levels I was working with, what tech services I was providing, so that at the end of the year, I could present this well-rounded kind of summary of how I spent my time. So Forms is great for record keeping as well. So how forms are used in the classroom, I think, is just also something that you should know. Teachers are using Google Forms for creating little mini activities. So what they'll do is they'll insert a video in the form or an image, or they'll ask students to read some content, and then they'll use the questions to kind of ask kids to show what they know, or they might ask students to write a response. There are some creative things you can do with Google Forms, like build choose your own adventure stories. And then certainly teachers are using forms to create assessments. There is a built-in quiz feature that will allow teachers to create quizzes that then will self-score, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if you'll have an instance where you would want to use the self-scoring, although you might if you're organizing a school-wide voting, if you're voting for homecoming queen and king, or you're voting on a new mascot or something, that self-scoring option might be great for you. So here are some examples of forms in the classroom. Again, reading logs. You can set up scaled evaluations. This is an example of a little learning activity with a video and questions. Here are some where you can choose multiple select, and you can now include images as your responses. So when you're thinking about all of your constituents, you can include visual support for parents who might have English as their second language, or for non-readers if you're working with primary students. And from an administrative standpoint, these are some of the ways that I've used Google Forms over the years. Both Josh and I were principals, so we have a wealth of experience of knowing what kinds of uses Forms has for administration. Certainly inventory work, having teachers, rather than write out what they want their classroom orders to be on a piece of paper and give it to you, and then you have to process all that. Creating an inventory form where they can fill out all the pertinent information and you have it all in one place from all the teachers. Team meeting tickets out the door. If your principal hosts PLCs or faculty meetings, and getting some feedback from staff after that or after a professional development day. These are great uses of forms. So again, what we're trying to do is save you from having to go through 55 paper feedback forms where you then have to compile all of the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s. If you build forms for this, it's going to make your life so much easier. Needs assessments, parent-teacher conference sign-up or parent meeting sign-ups, and we use them for walkthrough observations as well. And if you ever manage any kind of registrations for clubs or extracurriculars, these are all opportunities where you can take advantage of forms. Yeah, a lot of people do it for parent volunteer time, or for donations of parents for like bake sale things or school-wide events and things like that. So let's talk about how forms work so that you can start building your own. So Google Forms it's the purple background that you'll get to know and love when you start building new forms. And yes, that is why I chose purple as my accent color for these slides. Everything has a reason. One of my teacher friends said, "Lynn, we love how you laugh at yourself during your sessions. It's whatever you can do, guys, to keep the magic alive when you're talking to a computer and not real human beings." So this is what the form builder looks like. And you have a section where questions are built, and then right next to it you have a section of responses. And so you can view a summary of responses all right here. I'm actually going to give you a quiz because I want you to take it so we can check out some responses in action. This is the view that you would send to someone who you wanted to take your form. So that live look at the form, and you use the little eyeball to get that view. So we'll look at that. And then again, remember, you have the option to send your responses out to Google Sheets if you would like to do more with the data. So there are various types of questions built into Google Forms, and these are all of the things that you can import into a form. You can, of course, add questions. You can now import questions from other Google Forms. So if you did a Google form last year and you'd like to reuse some of the questions in a new form, you can import questions. You can add titles and descriptions within the form to make it more easily understood. You can add images and video, YouTube videos, and you can also section out your form so that there are section headings. And again, that's really to better organize your form if it's lengthy. It's not best practice to give a form that has like 25 questions all straight down the row of the form. So it's nice to be able to section that out if needed. These are all of the types of questions that you can build. So short answer, long answer, which is what paragraph would be, And then you have your multiple choice, your checkbox, or your drop down options, where you are plugging in the options and they are checking off one of them or choosing one of them. Relatively new to the scene is the file upload option. So you can actually build a form and you can say, please upload your resume, or please upload your parent signature on this field trip form. And parents can do that and respondents can do that. You can pick what types of files are allowed, like images only or PDFs only, and you can set the max file size as well. These are great for getting feedback on a variety of options. Like if you want to say, okay, parents, our visitation times for this week are Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 9 to 3. What are the best options for you? They can go through and they can check different options, multiple options on the grid. And then of course there's standard date and time you can enter too. Just as a heads up, if any of your teachers ask, if teachers are designing quizzes, they can submit them as a locked mode quiz, where students who are using district managed Chromebooks can be locked into a quiz, so they can't open any other windows at that time. They can only take the quiz. So I put this in here for you for informational, that in case any of your teachers ask. Now, if you're following along on my slides, I'd love for you to head to slide 15 and take my forms quiz. And if you're not following along, I'll put the quiz link in the chat for you, so you can click on that and take your quiz. This is just a Google trivia quiz. It's not high stakes. I don't expect you to know all the answers or anything, but go ahead and take that forms quiz. And I'm gonna go into editor view so I can see my questions, and I'm gonna click on responses. And as you finish in real time, we should start to see some answers come in. So let's see if any of you, I'll just give you some good wait time there, some good think time. Okay, here come the responses in real time. Guys, our average score is 1. All right, we want to get past 2.5. Let's see if we can get some higher scores here on this trivia. So you can see everything's automatically adjusting as the new responses are coming through. So we're at 1.67 for the average. Now this is the summary of how the class did. You're my class. It shows me as the teacher some frequently missed questions, so some things I might have to review as the teacher. It has your names, and then it shows question by question how the class did. And like I said, this is just a silly example, but you can get that immediate feedback from your surveys. And I can scroll through now and I can see, oh, our average is getting higher, question by question as well. So I can go through and I can see, you know, how you all did on the questions. Now, this is set up as a quiz, so you were able to get your responses right away. And I can even go in and I can give individual feedback after the fact. So this is Rebecca's. So her feedback, she had the first one incorrect, which is fine, Rebecca. Don't worry about that. I can say, read this article to find the right answer. And I can add specific feedback that way. But I wanted you to get a sense for how easy it is to build or to take a form as a respondent. Now, we mentioned all the responses kind of living here in this space, but there's also that opportunity for you, save, to, like I said, send these responses to a spreadsheet. And when you're in responses mode, this is where you can do that. there is a tiny icon called Create Spreadsheet. And when I click on that, and I'll do this again when we build a form from scratch, the first thing that it does by default is create a new spreadsheet, and it just names it whatever I named your quiz or your form. And that is option one, to create a brand new spreadsheet that is linked to this specific form. The other option is to choose a spreadsheet that you already have and send your form data to that spreadsheet. So we'll talk about the difference, because that is an incredibly useful option as well, so you don't have 50 different spreadsheets for 50 different forms. So I'll just click create, and you'll be able to see how it takes that form data, it brings it in, it timestamps everything. It you can choose for the forms to collect your email addresses of the people taking your forms as well. So those are all things we're going to look at, but then it just comes into this neat, tidy little spreadsheet. All right. So that'll be there for you. You can always try it if you couldn't get in during this session, if you were kind of stuck in full screen, which does happen. There should be like a, up at the top of your screen too, you should be able to get out, but escape did the trick. All right, so let's make, actually I'm going to change that. We're not going to make a quiz, we're going to make a form on the fly. All right, so let's make a form. So to start out, we'll go to our handy dandy favorite place in the world, Google Drive, right? There is a trick to just start a new form. If you want to, you can just start a new tab and click on and type forms.new. Forms.new will just make you a blank form. Or from Google Drive, click on that new button, and Google Forms is down under more. It's the first one under more. And just like some of the other apps, Forms has a template gallery. So I believe Josh showed you this last week with Google Sheets, starting out from a template. Let's check out what templates are available for Google Forms. You might find some that are useful for you. Now, this is important to know that there are two sections of every template gallery. There's a BCIU template gallery, and Josh showed you one of the expense sheets that was in our gallery. So your school has a specific gallery. And then there's a general template gallery. These are the forms that are submitted from the Google Gallery. So there are things like exit slips, assessments, a course evaluation. That might be a good one for you guys. Then there's like contact information, find a time. I used this one the other day to set up a meeting. So I just clicked on the new template, find a time. We need to get together. If you're trying to bring all the principals together, if you're trying to bring all the 6th grade teachers together, or the PTO officers, what times are you available? And that's really easy kind of to do. So let me go back to the templates, see what else we got. We have signups. What shirt size do you need? Party invites. So some of these are personal. Then there's an event registration. If you ever host a professional development day and you need to set up registration. And then there's some feedback, order forms, job applications, work requests. This is great for like the tech department, or to schedule a custodian service or maintenance. Those would be useful. And then there's a feedback form. All of these can be edited. Like, for example, if you don't really like the flowers, but you like the idea of using this order request, then you can change the theme of it. So sometimes it's easier to start from scratch than it is to start from a template, depending on how many of the preset questions you want to use. It's totally up to you, and it's just worth some time going through and investigating new, more, Google Forms, and then the little arrow from a template. Okay, but today we're going to just start from scratch. So here we are with our purple friend here. Now, what we're going to do is, just like Josh recommended last week, don't leave your forms and docs and sheets untitled. Do your best to give it a title, even if it's just a working title you're going to change later. We'll call this, and of year needs survey. And once I do that, it kind of updates wherever the title is. If you click inside, right? It probably has typos. Descriptions, you don't have to add descriptions, but you can if you want to. And it starts you with just one sample question that's multiple choice. That's just how everyone starts. Now you'll notice these little boxes, and you'll notice this blue bar on the left-hand side. Whenever I am actively editing a question or a section, that blue bar on the left shows up. So I'm actively editing this. Now when I click in here, oh, now I'm actively editing this question, and you see more options come up. This is the format for pretty much all of the building that you do inside Google Forms. Your tools are going to follow you around throughout the form as you're building. It always looks like this. So once you learn the plus sign is add a new question, import questions, text and description, title and description, image, video, sections. That's just going to follow you around. And then within the question itself, all right, now you'll notice without doing anything, Google Forms is, quote, getting smarter. If that terrifies you, I apologize, but it is attempting to customize your form based on what you put in it. So like I put your name. And right away, it changed from a multiple choice question to a short answer, because it knows that you're not going to have a multiple choice option for your name if people are putting in their name. So this is where they will write their answer in the actual form. If I didn't like that it changed that for me automatically, I can click here. This is where I find my type of question, okay? So at any time I can click here and I can choose a different type of question. Now you'll notice sometimes this little image guy pops up. He pops up a lot of places. He pops up here in a multiple choice question. He pops up on the side here. So anywhere you see that little image icon, you can add an image to that specific place. What that means is if I click here and I find an image, it's going to affix that image to, very large, to the question itself, because that's where the little icon was for that, okay? If I choose this image box, it's going to affix the image to this particular question response. So just know that. Sometimes people try to add images and they go to the wrong place because they're not using the right image button. So these will affix to the responses. This will add an image to the question. And this guy on the side is just going to add an image into the form as an image on its own. So it now exists here as like a question, or like another piece that is out here that you can just title, like, look at our great school. So just know that. That's sometimes really confusing because of the same icon appears in different places, okay? So let me change this up again. Well, I'll keep that because it's adorable. We'll change this back to short answer. Okay, so we have the first question. So now we're going to go and we're going to look at the rest of the features within this box, because there's a lot going on down here that is easy to miss. The first icon is duplicate. If you're going to do kind of the exact same type of question again, just with a different question text, you might want to duplicate that. Now this one I'm actually not going to use the same type because I'm going to remove that picture. For this example, I'm going to do a multiple choice. I'm going to do K1. I'm using tabs to go through. You can also hit return or enter to go straight down. Okay, so now I have a grade level option, multiple choice. That was duplicating. It will duplicate exactly what you have, everything included, the images, the text, the responses, if you choose duplicate. Trash can is how you will delete your option, your question. And this little guy is very important. If you want to make sure that the teachers or the parents answer the question, and they must put an answer in there or they can't submit the form, you have to make it a required question, okay? There are some advanced features in the triple dots menu of every question. If you need to give more details about the question, if you want to give a little one-liner and tell them more about the question so they have guidance when they're answering it, click on description. And now under here, you can give them guidance. What is your name? Probably not for that one. Also, response validation we're going to talk about. Response validation is a way to ensure that the answers they are giving you are in a format that you want them in. So if you want them to write the number, the numeric number of something, and you don't want them to write the word, you can set it up so that they can only enter numbers and not text that way, okay? So now we have another question, and this is basically how you build. You go through, you add a new question. It's going to add the one you just did. You can change it up. Now we have checkboxes. Let's do, what are people asking me? Please check the areas of need that you need support at the end of the year. I'm just making this up, people. Report cards, assessments, room maintenance, communication with families. Okay, these are 3 options that teachers might need help with at the end of the year. Required, don't forget to require things. Required. Now, at any time while you're building, let me zoom out. At any time while you're building, you can take advantage of the preview button, which is the eyeball, okay? So we're going to click on the eyeball. This is what the teacher would see when you share it out with them. So they see the questions, they see if a question is required, it has a red asterisk, okay? Here's the grade level, and here's what they need, and then I left that in. And here's the submit button. Now, I'm going to show you something because this says this form was created inside BCIU. And I'm glad it does that for me because it reminds me of some things. It reminds me that sometimes in school Google accounts, there are settings in place that lock down Google Forms to just that school. And if I was surveying parents, for example, I could not build a form and keep it locked down to my school district because then a parent would not have access to an email address for the school district. So what I'm going to need to do before I finish off this form at some point is get into these settings. And let's check out the settings for forms. There's really 3 separate sections of settings. So we have, oops, that went a little crazy. We have the general settings, the presentation settings, and quiz settings. Now, I don't know if you're building any quizzes, but that's really, I'm not really going to go through that today. That's section 3. But general is really important, okay? 1, you can collect the email addresses of people taking your form. And that's really important if you want to make sure that who's responding is actually the person responding. You can send them a response receipt, meaning the person can receive a copy of their responses. So if you're worried about having teachers submit things, but then they don't have their own copy of it, turn on response receipts because then they'll get a response, a copy of their responses. Here's what I was talking about. right now, by default, my Google Forms always have a restriction to people in BCIU, but I'm going to uncheck that because I might want to send it out to other people. You need to make sure if you're sending it out to the public that yours is unchecked. And then you can limit people to one response. And if you do that, it requires a Google login. So just know that. You can decide if respondents can edit their response after they submit. And what that means is they can go back in after they click submit in that moment, not like the next day or the day after. But let's say they click submit and the teacher thinks, oh no, I forgot to mention that my air conditioning is broken. They can click edit and then go back in and fix it. And you can also allow respondents to see the summary of how other people responded if it's a survey or a class vote or something like that, okay? So that's general settings. Presentation settings deal with things like, do you want to see how far along you are in the form if you have a multiple section form? So you can show a progress bar, you can shuffle the question order, if you think that makes a difference, and you can show a link to submit another response or not. The confirmation message is nice. I think it's nice to personalize that. So you could say, thanks for completing the form. We'll be in touch soon with more details or whatever. So you can customize that. All right. And if you make any changes inside your settings, be sure you click save so all of that gets saved. Now, you'll notice what happened because I said, please collect users' email addresses. So now there's a brand new question that says email address. It is requiring a valid email address and it's required question, and it says this form is collecting email addresses. So you'll notice that some things change depending on the settings that you choose. So of course, people are very interested in making their form look awesome, and maybe the purple isn't your first choice. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the customize theme option, which is the little paint palette. You can choose any of the preset colors that are here, or if you want to fancy it up, you can choose an image. There are a number of preset images from the Google folks that you can choose from. And what will happen is after you pick a picture, it will adjust the selection of theme colors to match your picture, which is just so nice. You can also choose a different font style. There are 4 types. Some of them are harder to read than others. I would just recommend you pick one that's easier to read. Like, I don't know, I don't love that. So we'll go with playful for that. And when you're all done making your changes, just click X, okay? And then this is pretty much, this is it. I mean, this is how you make a form. On the side, you can add, again, it's gonna default to what you had. So other ones, here's that file upload option. It tells you a little bit about what this means. Files will be uploaded to your Google Drive, and then respondents will be required to sign into Google when file upload questions are added to a form. Make sure to only share this form with people that you trust. So then once you do that, you get to pick the types of files that are allowed, the number of files that are allowed. We just use this for the Core Connections conference. We had students design logos for a contest, and this is one of the ways that they could submit their artwork through a file upload. So that's another option that you have. We have things, this is what the multiple choice grid looks like. So you would set up all of your different rows. So Monday, Tuesday, remember we said Thursday, and then you could set up your column. So like what's best for you, morning, 8 to 10 a.m., afternoon, 11 to 2, you know, I'm just making up words, evening, 6 to 8 p.m. So what that will look like then is this. So set up your rows, set up your columns, and you can do that for checkboxes too if you don't like the bubble situation, okay? So let's look at the additional menus here under the triple dots. So under more, this is the place where you would add a collaborator. Google Forms is a little bit different than the other apps when it comes to sharing with a co-editor. So in Google Forms, someone who's going to edit the form with you, or someone you're going to give editing privileges to, is called a collaborator. So you'll notice there's no share button up here. See your little people with the plus sign? That's your clue that you can share. And now we get to our familiar share feature. They do tell you that any editor that you add to the form is going to be able to view and delete responses from that form. So it's a very high level of privilege that you're giving people. So it just does warn you of that, okay? This is also a place where in the triple dots, you can make a copy of a form. So if somebody shares a form with you and then you like the look of it, you want to make your own copy, so you're the owner of that copy, that you can do that here. This is how you trash the form. Something we talk about in Google Forms 102 is get a pre-filled link. What a pre-filled link is when you actually are completing parts of the form for people first, so that you can make sure that those parts of the form are answered in the specific way that they need to be, which is like a really unique situation, but it does come up sometimes when people need that. And then here is kind of more Google Forms 102 add-ons, which we'll talk about at the end of this session. And then some preferences that you have. You can set up your preferences to always collect email addresses from forms. And if you're doing quizzes, you can set a default point value for that. So you have questions, you have responses. And then here again, you can build a sheet. Before you even get responses, you can create that spreadsheet just like we looked at before, okay? So now, how can I send this to teachers to take this? You have a couple choices. One is you can just click on the eyeball and you can copy that link and you can paste it in an email and then just say, hey guys, fill out my form. That's one way to do it. That's typically what I do. There is a send button for your other options. So click on send and you actually have a couple of different options. You can send via email. Now, I'm certainly not going to type out the email address of 60 teachers that need this form. But if you have if you have groups set up, like Josh showed you the other day, and you type, grade 6 teachers, which I don't have, you could essentially blast it to them all at one sitting. So let's just say that was their email address. You could give it a subject. You could even fill out a message, please complete this checklist by Friday. And then you can choose to include the actual form in the email if you wanted to. This only works if you're emailing it to like a group or one other person. I would hate to see you type in all those email addresses in there. The next part is send via link. This is another great place. You can copy this full link with one click, copy it, paste it in an email to staff, paste it on the staff website, however you communicate with them. And if you'd like a shorter link, not quite short, but it's definitely shorter, you can click the shorten the URL and you can copy that and you can paste it somewhere else. When they go and click on it from their own email or in their browser, it'll take them right to the survey that they can fill out, okay? The third option for sharing is to embed the form. And what that means is that you're essentially placing code of the form in another space, like on a Google site or on a blog or wherever it is you host things online. Sometimes teachers will embed forms, other places to have parents, like on a school website perhaps. You could put the form right there and then they can fill it out right in the website. So again, you can, the options for sharing, click on the eyeball, copy and paste, and send that link at the top. That's what I do. It's just the habit I got into. Click send, send to an email address, click link, copy and paste this full link or shorten it and copy that, and then embedding. So that's how you get the form out to the people that you want to take the form. Okay. Let me jump here for a minute. Now, for those of you who are comfortable with the basics, but you'd like to give a little more creativity with your form, when you use a multiple choice question, you have an additional option of going to a section of the form based on their answer. So what it's turning into is a branched movement throughout the form that uses sections and uses multiple choice question formatting. I'll also work with drop down. Here's an example of what that looks like. And I did this when I surveyed parents as a principal because I had different questions for my K-2 families than I did for my 3 to 6 families, let's say. And so I wanted to find out first what grade their child was in so I could give them carefully designed questions for their grade level. So what is my favorite spring activity is the first question. So my choices are watching the flowers, jumping in rainy puddles, or playing outside. So I'll choose jumping in rainy puddles. And now because I chose this, the form is set up to take me to an open-ended question. Why is jumping puddles fun? Because I can wear colorful boots and get wet. Okay. Now, oh, I had to write more. That was character validation. Okay, now let's say I chose the flowers. This takes me to a different set of questions. It has a video to watch about spring flowers, and now name 2 varieties of the video and show any birds and blah, 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 okay? So this is an example of response validate, or not response validate, go to section based on answer. So let's look at how we would add that to our form. The first thing we would need to do is we would need to add some sections, okay? So I'm gonna zoom back to my actual size. And right now, this is just one section of a form, okay? So here's my section button. It's the double lines. So now I'm gonna add a second section, section 2 of 2. And I'm gonna call it areas of support needed. And at any time, you can see these little, there's 6 little dots, okay? I can grab those and I can drag these questions to any different location in the form. So don't think that if you need to reorder things or add something, you're gonna be stuck. You can change the order of things at any time through drag and drop. So what has now happened is this question now belongs to section 2, areas of support needed. I will not see section 2 when I get to my form, okay? Now when I get to my form, I only see section 1, and I won't see section 2 until I click next. But I gotta change those required questions so I can demo it, okay? I'm gonna turn those off. Now, you'll notice at the end of every section, it says, what should you do after this section? Well, after section 1, I will continue to the next section. That's pretty much my only option, unless I want the respondents to be able to skip a section, then maybe they'll go right to submit the form. So let's add a 3rd section so we can do some branching. So this one is called grades K to 2, and then we're gonna do a grades 3 to 6. Because if you remember, we had a specific, now I'm gonna have to move that back to where it belongs. We had a specific question in the beginning that asked for the grade level of our teacher. And so depending on how they answer, that's where it's going to take them in the form. So let's do this. I'm just going to make a fake question there, and I'm going to duplicate that here. Grades 3 through 6, preferred meeting times. And I know none of this is logical as a quiz or as a form. I get it. Okay, so let's do this. Now we'll do another section. We'll put this guy here. Now, maybe you're saying, I would like to move sections. How do I do that? That's a good question. There are, on the side of every section, triple dots, and you can move sections, and it will let you move them up or down depending on how it works best for you. You can use the arrows to do it, or you can drag and drop them in order, okay? So let's see how this goes. So now I'm going to just put an email address in there. I'm going to say my name is Lynn. So this is section 1. So here I go. Now it says, please check the areas of need that you need to support at the end of the year. Okay, I need help with that. Now, here's the point where I need to design the form. If my teacher chooses grade 1, I want the respondent to be led to the grade K to 2 section. And if they answer 5th grade, I want them to be led to the 3 to 6 section. So how are we going to do that? We're going to go into that question, and because it's multiple choice, under the triple lines, dots, I have this. Go to section based on answer, okay? Right now, the direction for someone who chooses kindergarten is to just go to the next section, but I don't want that. I want them to go here, grade K to 2. I want 1st grade to go K to 2. I want 2nd grade to go K to 2. And now for 3rd grade, I want them to go to the grades 3 through 6 section. So now what I've done is I have set this question up to lead the respondents to different places, okay? Now, after they're done with grades K to 2, I don't want them to go to the next section because that's going to take them to the grades 3 to 6. I want them to be done, and I want them to go to submit form, okay? So now let's see what it looks like. Here we go. I need help with this. I'm in grade 4, fingers crossed. Oh, good. Here I am, grades 3 to 6. Set up my meeting times, and now I'm done. Okay. Now, somebody said, is there a way to get an alert? There are options here in your triple dots where you can get an email notification every time a new response comes in. Now, that might be overwhelming especially if you're using it for something like a student check-in or check-out. Let me see what this says. Is there a way to have the form alert you when a student goes in late? I'm having to go back to each form to make sure I did not miss students who completed the form late. Well, it's going to timestamp when they take the form. So I'm not sure what the time requirement is in terms of taking it late or not. But you can get an email notification. It'll associate it with your email address. And you'll get that. Now, the other thing you can do is go into the spreadsheet. Again, it will timestamp when the form was taken. And there's probably a rule you can set up under the notification rules. Notify me when any changes are made or a user submits the form, and you could get an email right away, or you could get an email at the end of the day. I guess I need, and I don't know if Josh is in the chat to think about that, but like specifics about why you need to be notified when it's late, or if it's a quiz situation or like a check-in. There probably is a way using an add-on to get more specific feedback from notifications if it comes after a certain time.
Lynn, what I tell people to do is just to go into the sheet, turn on the filtering options, and then remove everything that's, only look at the things that are above the time.
The time it was due.
Yeah.
So right here is your filtering. So what he's saying is like you could go, let me go into this one. So if this was due at 10 o'clock, essentially all of these are late, right? So when you're here, you could create a new filter view and you could like just pick like whatever time, filter by condition or by value when you wanted that out. I'm still like the context, if that helps, I hope, that one. When it gets to more sophisticated uses of forms, I mean, there's a lot you can do with the add-ons. We did talk about response validation very briefly, but this is what that looks like too. If you want to make sure that people are responding a certain way, either with a number or within a range of numbers or with an email address, that happens in the, let me go back here, in an open-ended question. So let's go to add question. Let's go to short answer. And again, triple dots. Response validation will let you set conditions and a rule. So you want the answer to be a number. Do you want it to be greater than or equal to, blah, blah, blah. All of these, whole number, between. This helps, you know, when teachers are doing quizzes, they want responses in a certain way. Text. You always want text that maybe you are collecting a link, so it has to be a URL. Maybe it has to be an email address. Length, you can set a minimum and maximum character count. And then for regular expression, contains, matches, doesn't match, things like that. So that is where response validation can be set up. There are so many rules that I can't show them all to you. They're here in this link in the Google Help Center. It's all about the types and these are all types of regular expressions that you can set it up to do. So it's kind of wild that way. And then really just to wrap, I just want you to know that there are extra things you can watch. Our Google Forms 102 video that we did, because I go through a number of these add-ons. I talk about Choice Eliminator, which essentially gets rid of choices after they've been chosen. So it's great for signups because if third grade wants to go to the book fair at 10 o'clock on Wednesday and they choose that, when the next person goes to the form, they can't choose 10 o'clock on Wednesday because it's been eliminated. So that's Choice Eliminator. Form Limiter will let you set limits on how many people fill out the form and or how many people get to choose a certain thing. So that's a good one. And so definitely watch that if you want to get into some Google Forms 102. There's a cheat sheet here for Google Forms and more resources. And don't forget about the digital notebook that we're building for you. That link is here. And when you get in, it goes through all the things we've done thus far. And it has the recordings of the sessions that we've already done. It has some practice tasks to make sure, oops, I can take coming soon away because it's here, it lives. Google Drive, and then we have additional resources. We link to all the slides that we share during the sessions too. So you have all of this in one neat and tidy place. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that link in the chat if you have not done that yet. And so we're up here, we're up to Google Forms. So these are some things that you should know how to do based on our mission today. And then these are my slides and then a bunch of other options here for you. And I'm gonna add the link to this video when it's all done being processed. But we have a couple minutes for Q&A if you had anything that you'd like to ask with the mic. I'm going to just share the link to the session feedback form and the request for Act 48 credit. If you are in a position where you are in Act 48 and you'd like that, it's bit.ly/IU14 session feedback. So go ahead and visit that link. And this is the link to our Core Connections virtual site. bit.ly/cclearniu14. So we have lots more sessions available in our on-demand section. And we're also putting together some summer learning series coming out soon for you. But thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to stop the recording, and feel free to grab the mic and ask any questions that you have.